From geeking on photography forums to becoming the photo editor of Rides magazine, Andrew's journey is a familiar story that many of the industry greats have lived. Tonight, we're breaking down just a few incredible images he's put together during his career, and he'll be sharing tips on how he works, the magic he puts into these images, and advice for others who are still finding their own way. This week, we're talking to Andrew Link. This is Why Do I Love This? All right, so tonight's guest is Andrew Link. There's absolutely no way you haven't seen his work before. You may not know him by name, but you've definitely seen the pictures that he's done. I think one of the first pictures I remember seeing that it was just huge on the internet that he put together was the unicorn. Was that was Ken Block's Mustang, wasn't it, Andrew?
Yeah, first version of it at least.
That was a fantastic photo.
Thank you.
So anyway, I will turn it over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I got started with, the long version of it is there used to be a forum called Diesel Station. I'm not even entirely sure what it was actually about, but the photography section in it was just insane. And like if you went through the list of people that were members now, if you went through it now, it's all guys that have eventually done this for a living. I met Easton Chang through that, Seagram Pierce, Nate Hassler, just everybody was on it, and it was brutal. You would post stuff and get completely annihilated, and then it made you better because then you didn't want to be the guy that posted something shitty the next time. You needed to really come correct the next time you posted anything, and it was this global thing, and it was Easton Chang basically invented the rig shot on it. There's some threads that are still up on it that are just insane. So that's where I started. I was working at a car shop customizing stuff when that was still cool. And we needed photos of the stuff we were building for the website they were building. So I figured I could buy a camera and figure it out. So I started just screwing around with the stuff that we had in the shop. And then I was posting it on Diesel Station and getting completely torn apart every couple days and coming back with something better. And then I got a DM one day from Tony Harmer. He was the photo director of Rides magazine. Since we were the only two members, we'd gone back and forth on the forum a couple times, and we were the only two members from New York. So he messaged me and asked if I wanted to come in and help out around the studio and hang out for a little while. So I started basically cleaning the studio at the Rides office for a couple weeks, and then they hired me as a photo assistant. And then I was Tony's assistant, and then he left for another magazine within the same publisher, and I was the photo director at Rides for 8 or 9 years after that. And then they folded in 2015 or 16, and I've been just freelance ever since.
Nice. So
the station was official.
So that's hearing about that, kind of how rough that was. That it kind of reminds me of the automotive photography education group on Facebook. I know that I joined that group several years ago, kind of when I first got interested in this, and I just did a lot of reading because, like you said, you'd see people just get massacred on there. Yeah. And so I learned through other people's bad work. And
people always say, that places like that are too rough. But I always learned, especially from Diesel Station, I always learned better that the fear of sucking was worse than somebody telling you, everything's great, even though it's terrible. You need to be told it's terrible eventually.
Yeah. And I think everybody goes through that stage where they get their camera, they're taking pictures, and they're their friends. They do what friends do. Yeah. Oh, this is great. And it's so hard to get. Yeah. You don't grow from that at all. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool.
A lot of fear in a lot of people.
And so Diesel Station was a forum, is that right?
Yeah, it might have been about Volkswagen. I literally have no idea. I've never went into any other section of it but the photo section, and the photo section was insane.
I'll just dig through there and take a look at that. I'd like to see some of your earlier stuff.
Some of the guys on it was Seagram, Easton, Chris Benny was on it, Jeremy Cliff was on it. That's where I met Jeremy. Nate Hassler. Richard Thompson was on that. It's everybody that's working currently was a member of Diesel Station at some point.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll have to take a look at that.
Actually, that's where we all met Steve DeMitt too, who basically invented the way we shoot cars now.
Really?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that then. What do you mean by that? Kind of invented it?
Well, Steve was the first to really like, grab like an Alien B or some kind of like, actually it was probably like on camera flat, like the little on camera flashes at the time, and start using them wirelessly to light cars for like magazine stuff. Cause everything up until then had been, natural light stuff for like super basic stuff. And Steve was out doing like crazy composite stuff and fake motion stuff and lit stuff. And everyone was just like, what the hell is happening? And we all basically begged him to teach it to us on Diesel Station.
That's amazing. I've never actually even heard of Steve DeWitt. So is he still active in the community?
No, Steve passed away last year or the year before. And yeah, it was a big loss because he was incredible and the nicest guy on the planet, too.
I'll have to do some digging. I'd like to look that up and see.
Yeah, when this is done, I'll email you. His site actually might still be up. It's just ridiculous stuff. He shot all the 5-axis Scions when they did like the wide body DJ Booth XB, like all those crazy bright color, like crazy modified Scions. He did all that.
That's awesome. So I've seen his work. Then I'm just not familiar with the name.
If I sent you a stack of his stuff, you would definitely recognize it and just not realize it was him.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into some of this. So as I said, the kind of the structure is I went through, picked out some stuff that I love of the work that you've done. And I know that, you've done so much and it's really hard to pick too, but this was some stuff that I thought was pretty cool that I thought could make for interesting conversation. So let's just start here with this first one. So, just looking at this image, we'll kind of break it down, but I'm guessing this is a light painted image. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the location. Did you actually shoot this on location or was this a spot that you already had, archived?
So this was a shop that I deal with, had worked on it for this guy. And then I had asked around, could we shoot it? Could we shoot it? And then eventually they wore him down and we did. And this is actually in the rain in his driveway outside his house. Like, so to the right of that curb would be like his front porch. And we just took, that's a back plate that I just stripped into the back.
Nice.
So sometimes I like to shoot stuff. Like if I know I have like not the best background on the planet to work with, I'll shoot something where there's just a nice flat horizon I can work at. Like I think Dale said the same thing when you interviewed him, that he likes to use the existing ground. So as long as I have a good patch of concrete, I'll usually find some kind of flat horizon and just so I have somewhere nice to cut it. And then this worked out because his driveway was so long that it just faded to black and meets that tree line pretty evenly.
So the trees and the sky and the stars and that's all from other work that you already had, a backplate.
Yeah, that's all stripped together. So the trees is one thing, the sky is something else. It's done in like 3 or 4 pieces. The left trees are different from the right trees. It's a lot of compositing.
Okay.
I think we shot that sky in like, me and Jeremy Cliff did a road trip for Mercedes from Colorado to California. I think we shot that in like Red Rock Park right before we went into Vegas.
Nice. Yeah, they've got some great visibility out there with the stars. So, all right, so we kind of covered location then with what you worked with there. Let's talk lighting. I know I asked already a little bit about how you lit this. Can you kind of walk through how you lit this?
Yeah, so this is 2 pieces lit with an ice light. I have the ice light 1. I don't have the replaceable battery one yet, at least. I'm sure mine will break eventually and I'll have to get it. But yeah, it's just one high pass to get that kind of rim light around the back to separate it. And then so it was one pass from the far tail light all the way around to the front in one piece, and then one just walking behind the car to get the rim light. I try to light paint in like big sections so that there's less to blend.
Sure. Yeah, I've noticed in some of the comments that you've made before about you're pretty limited in how many frames you use. And I mean, that comes with experience, right? I mean, you've done this so much, you've got the experience of knowing kind of how to light.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, because when you light paint, every car's got a different height and angle that it wants to be lit from. Thankfully, these angular Lambos are kind of easy. Once you find the right height, the body line highlight, sits pretty consistent on that line. So, it takes us 2 or 3 shots to find the height, and then another couple to get it that we were in and out.
And is this a carbon fiber vehicle?
Yeah, it's all bare carbon.
How was that with your lighting experience? Do you feel like that was difficult, or did it seem to carry the light a little bit better?
I feel like the weave, it's harder to show the weave. Trying to think back. It's been a while since I've seen that car and seen those files. But I remember it being fairly, I think we drove up there thinking it was going to be tougher than it ended up being.
Okay.
Actually, because I've shot like bare carbon, I've shot a bare carbon Bugatti, so it's much rounder, and that was a lot more difficult to deal with than this. I think the angles really helped us with the bodywork.
Yeah, I've heard that it can be really difficult unless you just blast light straight in there to really show off that carbon. And I had a feeling when I saw this picture, for some reason, it feels like it's carbon fiber. I don't know if that's because I know a little bit about the car too, but yeah.
And if you had the full size, you could definitely make out the weave. I mean, the car is also pretty small in the frame, so it's not really all that legible. But in the detail shots, you could definitely see, like when we shot the wheel and we shot the interior, you could see the weave really stands out.
Okay.
And these cars are crazy. This car, like all the weave lines up perfectly. Like when where the separate panels join it's all lined up. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I've never in my life seen a car with this much carbon on it, like in person. So I can't even imagine. That's just crazy to me, the level of detail. But I mean, you pay for it too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of like 3 of those that exist.
So when you shot this, was this just a personal thing, or did you shoot this for a campaign or anything?
No, this was the shop worked on it, and I just asked if we could shoot it. Like, there's definitely the right and wrong times to shoot stuff as a favor.
Sure.
And obviously, this car is worth shooting as a favor.
And so the reason I ask is I'm curious about composition. It's pretty center weighted. I didn't know if there was a reasoning for that, or if it was just because of the location you had to work with, or
just trying to work around the driveway. I mean, when I could have moved it once I decided to comp it, but we were trying to salvage the actual location, but just fading to straight black wasn't nearly as good looking.
Sure. And so with your the last thing really that I have, question wise on the breakdown with this would be kind of the choice of depth of field. I know, and you're no stranger to this. A lot of people just buy a fast lens, shoot as wide open as they can all the time. And I don't know, maybe there's a time and a place for that. I personally, I've done that. I've been in that phase myself. And sometimes I still do that with detail shots. But for full car shots, it seems like the go-to in the industry is really stop it down, get the whole car sharp.
Yeah, I definitely would rather have a sharp car than just constantly shooting wide open. Like you said, I'll shoot wide open for like details or close-up stuff. But for a full car, it's usually between like f8 and f11, somewhere around there.
And you do that all the time, even if it's not like a campaign necessarily. That's just kind of your style at this point, right?
Yeah, it's just what I'm used to doing.
Okay.
I've strobed cars before at like 2.8 and stuff like that. I just would rather have the whole car totally sharp.
Sure. Well, let's move on to the next image here, which is this one. I mean, from an eye-catching perspective, this one maybe feels a little more flat compared to the other one. But to me, the reason image is just incredible to me. Having tried to just even do, rollers, the big thing, rollers, we got to shoot rolling shots of cars. And just knowing how difficult that can be to keep a car sharp. So to actually catch a car drifting and the front end of that car is just like tack sharp. That's just amazing to me.
Yeah, I know you talked to K Fletch. He's obviously way better at this stuff than me, but this was just, I'm way more of just mashing the shutter button. I mean, there's obviously, experience behind it, but I still just pray that we end up with something.
And you have like kind of a go-to, because everybody always asks, what settings did you use? What lens did you use? All this. Do you have kind of a baseline when you're trying to catch motion for as far as the speed that you're shooting at, or do you just look at, you're shooting in manual, you check the light and you just go from there?
For this, I mean, so this was shot last year. I covered all of McLaren's pure McLaren events. They're customer track days. So everybody involved in that is so busy, you know, making sure the customers and the drivers and everybody's having a good time that like we kind of push. I'm there mostly for like event coverage. So trying to get stuff like this is kind of a secondary thing. If we have time, if we could find a car, blah, blah, blah. So this, we lucked out that they did from this track. This was at, I think the Thermal Club in California. So they wanted this, they had shown me a drifting shot that they wanted to replicate. So we found like an hour after they did the safety shutdown of the track, we had like 15 minutes before sunset. That was, you know, we could go out and take a low speed lap. Jamie, the stunt driver, took the car out to heat it up while we set me up in the back of the Tahoe. And it was literally just take a few frames, make sure the settings were right for the light. And then as soon as he came back through the pits, we went out and led him around the track for one lap and just hoped it worked.
So you nailed this in one lap.
Yeah. So they only gave us one lap. I think out of 4 events last year with them, I think for doing stuff like this, I was given a total of like 1 lap at each track to try to get something, just to make something happen. So yeah, while he was heating the car up, I think, you know, I usually just lay in the Tahoe and usually, you know, it's always ISO 100. And then I was probably decently high aperture, and then just dial to a shutter that worked. And then as we went through the track, I would check the back here and there, just to see what we were getting and if we were getting anything. And I usually use a Nikon 24-120 f4 IS. Oh, well, they don't call it. I'm just so used to saying IS. I think it's VR for Nikon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that usually affords you an extra little bump in, you know, shutter speed. So this was probably at like, let me see if I can find the exit. I think I have these files open. I think this was at like 1/30th.
I look at this and you know, I mean, a lot of people look at this and think, well, it's photoshopped. And
I wish I could make my fake rollers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, having tried that too, and you know, follow some of Pepper Yandel's tutorials and some of the classes he's done, and I just can't even begin to wrap my head around trying to simulate that type of motion. And I mean,
I wish I had some of the raws to call it. They're from last year, so they're probably on a drive that's in a Pelican right now. But this is like a deceiving shot. He is way closer to the back of the Tahoe than it looks. He is an insane stunt driver. He was like literally on the bumper of the Tahoe.
Which just makes it even more fun, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so you already kind of disclosed like why this was the location. It's because it was a track day event. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, you know, of course, I mean, anybody who doesn't have access to a track sees shots like this and they wish they did have access to a track. I mean, where else can you get amazing shots of supercars like this than you stick them on a track? It's
funny, too, because when you're dealing with brands, I mean, like this was one of the ones we picked only because it didn't have smoke. Meanwhile, when you shoot drifting and stuff like that, you want as much. Like we have other ones where it looks like he's about to win Formula D, but they wanted as little, you know, because it's a stock, you know, a car that's for sale, and I guess they just didn't want it to look, you know, super crazy, but it's still drifting at almost 90 miles an hour.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that look would appeal to a slightly different audience than the typical buyer of a McLaren. So, yeah.
I mean, I've met a lot of owners, though. A lot of them like to get down like this. It's a fun group.
I can only imagine. So with lighting, this is just all your natural lighting?
Well, this is all natural, but at thermal, it's surrounded by mountains. So you end up with really soft. You end up in the flat, soft kind of shadow sunset time earlier than it should because it dips behind the mountains before it's actually set. So we ended up with a decent window of time to work with.
Nice.
And this is really like maybe half an hour in Photoshop. I mean, they were pretty spot on from the jump.
That's amazing.
Because it's just like a great. I think Robert Grubbs shoots there a lot for O'Gara, or I don't know if it's O'Gara anymore. With the dealership that he works at, they do a lot of stuff at thermal, and I met him in person, I think, for the first time that day. And we were talking about how it's just, you get the extended window of good light there because of the way it's set up. So it was a great spot to shoot. And then after begging all day for a window of time, I'm actually glad it was at the end of the day rather than during lunch, because it wouldn't have looked as good at noon.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just an incredible picture. I love the coloring on it too.
Thank you.
I love the sky, and it's just phenomenal. It's super cool to see how sharp the front of that car is and that sweeping motion. It's fantastic.
Well, it's also gaining on us. So like the hard part is trying to keep us distance enough from him to keep the front in focus, because there's a whole lot of those from that section of track that are just not. It's either him goosing it too hard, coming through the turn and coming too close to us, and then we adjust. So it's like a weird dance of like trying to match speeds, and then a couple of them just work out.
Sure.
And I also, when I shoot like tracking or drifting or anything like that, I try to avoid, like, everyone's going to get the shot with like the stopped wheel. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you pan slightly too fast and the cars look parked,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's sharp, but there's no motion. So like I would rather get 4 million shots that I have to throw away and get one of these than get 1,000 boring shots.
Right.
Shooting this at a third, I probably could have gotten something safer at like 50th or 60th since we were going so fast, but it wouldn't have been this shot.
Right.
Like I would rather throw away half a memory card and get one that's worth keeping than keep a whole bunch of garbage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely understand that. So, and with this, what was composition a factor for this one at all?
I think I shot pretty wide on all of them to make sure we had room to do some cropping later. This is definitely cropped slightly to the left of the frame. It's not as centered as it looks. At least the one that I delivered to them wasn't. Maybe I recropped it for my website. But yeah, these are all shot fairly wide where we could do whatever we wanted with them later, because 90% of the stuff was probably going to be used like social media or brochures to sell next year's track days. So they needed to have basically the same thing Dale said. Always give enough room to manipulate.
Okay. And when do you work with a high enough megapixel camera that you kind of always plan that way that they've got room to crop if they need to?
It's on a D850, so there's definitely enough room for them to play with.
Okay.
I've seen stuff like that I've shot for them printed huge at like Pebble Beach and stuff. So if I had stuck to a crop that I liked and they didn't like, then it doesn't get used at Pebble Beach. So it have to give them room to fit their art direction.
Sure. Well, we already kind of know depth of field was in play just because you were using that to kind of equalize your exposure. So we will move on to the next picture here. This picture is just awesome. And maybe it's a silly picture, but did you take this on the Power Tour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Power Tour is an adventure.
This truck is just amazing.
Yeah, we had chased him for a couple days trying to set this up. This was like our 4th or 5th day on the road, and we had seen him on the first day and just couldn't find out, whose truck is it, or where's the owner? Oh, this guy knows him. That it was just a mess trying to find him just to set this up.
And was this pretty quick?
Yeah. Oh my God. Everything at Power Tour, everything we do is quick. So Power Tour is 7 cities in 7 days. So you drive to the event, and then there's track days and drag racing and autocross and all car shows and all kinds of stuff. And then, so we'll go to the event all day and look for cars. Let me back up. We were covering it for Eaton Performance. So we had to find cars that had, their differentials or parts on them. So that's hard enough since we can't see the parts on any of the, it's not like wheels where you just walk by and like, that's it. So you have to go around, find cars that have the parts, find owners that are willing to give us time with the cars after, being at the track all day. So we would go to the event all day, spread out and look for cars. And then, I still have, because I'm too lazy to go through my phone, I have like, J milk truck, Steve Mustang all over my phone because it's just finding guys. We'll tell them we'll call them later and hope we can, find them on the side of the road to do stuff like this with. It helps after like the first day because then we have stuff to show the next set of guys and it kind of gets them amped up about, wasting their time with us at night instead of hanging out. So this car, in that tree line behind it, I don't know why I'm pointing at the screen with the pen. You can't see me. That tree line behind the red taillights behind the car, we had just shot a 32 Ford Roadster. And then this parking lot, so we'd finished that while they were watching us from a balcony at a hotel. So behind the camera on this shot is just the balcony. It's a whole like roadside motel kind of that they were all staying at. Some guys are working on their cars like 5 feet out of the frame of this. So everybody was hanging out, everybody was drinking. So we were like, all right, we're not taking it anywhere. Let's just put it right here in the parking lot and face the street because it was busy enough that I knew we would get headlight trails. And I love headlight and taillight trails. And then because it's a hill going down and then back up, it wouldn't be just flat lines. It would eventually curl back up and you get the headlights and the taillights. So we kind of banked on that happening and then had them park it right there for us. And it actually started pouring. You could tell the right windshield and a little bit of that front fender is covered in water. It was pouring while we shot this. I think we got like maybe a total of 15 minutes with the car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we put the car there, shot it. It's one pass with the ice light for the side of the car. And then one across the front that we blended. And then the headlights are a separate exposure. And the wheels are just brightened up from the left side exposure, but brighter than they were in the raw. And then he, once it started raining where everybody was like, all right, screw this, we're going inside. They took the car and we left the camera there for another like 2 or 3 minutes just to try to get more light trails. We just stood there in the rain waiting for trails. And then I think Eric went and got the van and backed it up literally to directly behind me so we could just push the whole tripod directly in the back instead of trying to disassemble the gear in the rain.
Yeah, and I kind of wondered when I looked at this image because I couldn't really see, and obviously, I mean, with the paint being in the condition that it's in, I didn't really notice any streaks.
Yeah, there's no body line highlight in it because it's just the way the paint is. Like that was a really patinaed paint job,
which is super cool. I mean,
yeah, it actually took light really well for what it was. I didn't think it would light paint that well.
One of the first things that popped in my head is it kind of reminded me of the ice cream truck from the old Twisted Metal series.
Yeah, without the clown head on it or something, right?
Yeah. And so with the location, you kind of already explained like why you guys shot it here. One of the things that
a lot of things, I think it goes back to my, I did 8 or 9 years in editorial where you're expected to have big budget results with $4 to throw at it. So I think part of my style has just been like I like to work with nothing. Like I like to just make the best out of like this is literally just the parking lot of a $40 a night hotel, and like we made like something out of it. I kind of like that better than not to say I don't go and plan stuff and location scout and stuff, but like when we're on the road for 7 days, we don't know where we are, we don't know where we're going, and like that's it. We have right now. We can make a shot right now or we don't shoot the car. So like you have to just scramble and find, make wherever you're at work. I think there's more Power Tour stuff where it's just like this whole section of stuff on my website is just cars that like were literally shot on the spot. We just would walk up to somebody, ask them if they had a Eaton differential. They say yes. And we're like, all right, move it 6 feet out of that parking spot and we'll make something happen. Because I think in 7 days we did 41 full-on features.
Oh my God.
41 separate cars.
And that's just amazing too, because, a lot of people put a lot of, it seems like it's one end of the spectrum or the other. It's, I don't care. I'm just going to shoot this car here. And if you actually try to do something with that, it can be impressive. Like what you're talking about here versus a lot of these, here's a picture of a car that was parked out in front of a Walmart, Yeah. It's just not the same thing.
Like, realistically, for Power Tour, like we could just walk around and shoot cars in their parking spots with cars on either side of them at the show, and nobody would care. It's the same. It's the kind of coverage you expect from a 7-day road trip. But like this stuff, kind of stands out in a group of like, this is Power Tour coverage, but done way different than most people would approach it.
Sure. And I love, like you pointed out, I love that it's kind of on a hill, that jog and the light streak. It's fantastic. It's such a cool, like the haze in the background and the lights lead right up to the car. And
well, the haze, thank God, is from, it started to rain and everybody was ready to call it quits. But I knew the rain would give us all those specular highlights and the street lights and the lights coming at us and that haze from the street light above us on the right. So like I wanted the rain because it was adding something to that right side of the frame. And had I dropped the camera position lower or tilted the horizon a little, that red streak would just be straight across and be kind of boring.
Sure. Yeah, the atmosphere is fantastic in this. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. It's over here. This shot is another one that I really, really liked on your website. And I know you had kind of said, they're all pretty straightforward shots. This is straightforward to you, man. But like stuff like this for people like me is just because if you look at this, it's kind of like, it's this great picture of this car in front of this building. What's hard about that? But if you actually don't know what you're doing, actually getting it to look like this is not that easy. And I mean, to you, it's probably second nature at this point. But to people like me, it's like, all right, what did you do with this picture to make it look so phenomenal?
Well, this is also that same Power Tour. And we had seen this car a couple days before this, and we're trying to track down the two guys that owned it. Apparently it's a big deal car, but I hadn't heard of it yet. So we were trying to track it down. Finally found the guys at the day before this and then connected with them and, could we shoot it? Could we shoot it? Maybe. We had to see. So I forgot what track. This might be Kentucky Speedway. This is a big NASCAR track. So we shot the whole drive to the event, shot a couple cars, then started walking through the event. We had ended up getting to the event late because there was a huge, I don't know how much about Power Tour but like it's 1,000 muscle cars going from place to place. But if you follow the route that Power Tour provides, you literally sit in traffic from point A to point, like the whole 200 or 300 miles a day. It's just a massive line. Like, because if you leave the starting point too late, and cars are already at the next place, then it's like sitting in line to get into like an arena the whole way. You know what I mean? Like cars stretch the entire length of the route just sitting. So we got to the event decently late because we were shooting rollers and stuff on the highway. Like we would go, a couple miles and wait. If we passed the gas station with a lot of cars, we would go a little further up and wait and then try to jump out in front of them on the highway and catch rollers that way. So we ended up taking our time getting to this place late. And then texted these guys because we were supposed to meet them, but they had left already. So we spin around, we were walking around the event. People start trickling out and breaking down their tents. And, before you know it, we look around and there's nobody. Everyone, all the spectators are gone. All the show cars are gone. The vendor midway is breaking down. And just the treadwear guys, because this car wasn't being driven. It was being trucked spot to spot. So there's a huge 18-wheeler loading, the couple cars that aren't being driven spot to spot. So we text the guys like, oh, we already left. I'm sorry. Like, well, listen, the car's there. Take it. So we're like, what do you mean take it? Like, I'm not taking this thing. He's like, no, there's, it's just reach in. There's no windows. Just reach in and put it in neutral and push it wherever you want. As long as you can push it and the truck guys can see you, like, take it. So me and Eric started pushing. We were trying to take it to the track, but it was a little too far to get it onto the track. Eventually, we took another Roadrunner and something else up onto the bank. And Powers was crazy because literally nobody cares. Like, we were after hours at a full-blown NASCAR track, walking the track with multiple cars, and nobody cared. Like, that's just not doable. I mean, maybe it is in the South, but like, if there was a NASCAR track here in New York, I couldn't imagine just being able to walk out onto it like I own the place. So we figured it's hard to describe without like a without knowing the place, but it's just this lot and the pit area is just a big empty lot. So everywhere you looked, there was nothing to look at. There was no background. So we decided to push it around the building into the pits and found these garages that we liked. And then just, I think it's one Profoto B1 down the side. I think the whole car lit in one piece on the side at least. And then the back. So it's crisscrossed. Eric handheld the strobe on the left side, kind of at like the fender, and just got the whole side in one piece and then ran around to the other side. And that's how you see that light coming through on the back, on the tail lights and up onto the spoiler. So this was another one that was just done in two pieces, only to keep it simple enough for us to deliver by the next day.
Yeah, and the quality of light is just fantastic on this.
Thank you. And this is another like patinaed car that just took light like a champ. Because we'll go through shots. I mean, we shot 41 cars. We had at least one shot from each set ready the next day. Like, so, we shot 5 cars on Monday. On Tuesday, we were able to walk around the show with at least one shot from each of those sets done. Like, because we just try to keep it as simple as possible.
Sure.
So that we can get back to the hotel, comp them all together, and have something ready to show the client and anybody we're trying to entice to shoot the next night.
Yeah, and it just turned out so cool.
Thank you. It's the colors, I think, that do it.
So,
it's just that it's not one. If it was all teal or all red, it wouldn't look as cool as it does. I love that car is made of so many different. I think it's supposedly the story is that it's made from a whole bunch of scrapped Roadrunners or Daytonas, whatever it is. So, they found a red one and took the door. They found a brown one and took the fender, and the teal one for the quarter. So, like, it's a really cool car with a cool story. But I think it was a solid color. It wouldn't be as cool as it is.
Sure. Yeah, and with the lighting, like you're talking about, kind of like the previous image with the truck, it does all those different colors. It really,
it
so much
adds something to it.
So this was just another one of those, like as you said, you just kind of had to push it to a location.
Yeah, I mean, they would have let us push it anywhere, but there's only, at an empty parking lot with some pits and the track, there was only so much. There was no way. And it weighed like 1 billion pounds. So there was no way we could have pushed it all the way through the fences and up onto the track. So, we just kind of looked around and like, what's the quickest? Because the guys who owned the car didn't care, but it was the trucker guys that were like, yo, when we're ready to load it, like, it better be back here. So we were like kind of keeping an eye over our shoulder at like how far along the process they were with the other cars. So we had to make a decision about like where we were going to shoot it immediately. What's the quickest? Get 2 or 3 shots of it and get it back on the truck.
Well, since you kind of covered the, location, lighting, composition, and all that with this, and this was, other than your favorite image that you sent me, and we'll get to that here in a minute, what kind of tips would you have for people that are just having to make use, like just make the location that they're at work? You kind of spoke to that a little bit about having to do that in your previous editorial days. So what tips or suggestions do you have for people that are in a situation where it's like, I just have to make this work? Like, what can they do to kind of really make full use of a location, lighting, composition, anything?
I think, if you're using off-camera light, then usually if you're trying to make something work, I try to position the light behind the car, and then you light the shadow side to kind of just fill it enough so that it's something interesting in the background. Usually, like if you could see the sunset or the sky's a cool color because because you're shooting into the sun, or the shadows that it creates will give you some interest rather than like just lighting the broad side of the car with the sun and everything kind of being flat. Also, just look for lines. Like I like these repeating vertical lines in this one, and I like the tail light sweeps in the other one that kind of add something to it. There's always something you can make out of nothing, even if you have to make it yourself. Like if there were no cars on that road, we would have just taken the rental van and ran up and down that street a couple times.
That's awesome, and a great way to improvise, really. So, with you talking about kind of the how you shot these, you were on Power Tour taking these pictures.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you have for people who might be considering trying to cover an event like Power Tour or a rally or something? Like, do you have any advice for how to handle that?
For rally, I mean, me and Pepper just did a whole bunch of, we did one in Europe and we did one in the Middle East together. And you have to realize you're never going to be everywhere. So you need to like do the math on where's the coolest stuff going to be, who are the people that are going to allow me, like find the cars that are like willing to do cool stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's some owners that don't want to be bothered, so leave them alone and go find somebody. You're never going to be able to shoot every car. You're never going to be able to be in all the spots. You know, you're always going to end up at like a fuel stop or a lunch stop and hear a story about something you missed. So you need to make the best out of what group you choose to go out with. So if there's guys that just want to be there to be the first ones out in the morning and drive, that's probably not the group you want to be with. You want to be with the guys that are willing to have a little fun, that want photos of their cars. I tended to, for this and for the Supercars Club Arabia stuff that me and Pepper did, we always made better stuff after. So like there's always a chance to like find people, show them some of the stuff you've done already and see if you can set up, like do something set up like this. Because like I like this more than I would like this just driving on some random highway with some trees in the back. You know what I mean? So like just seeing if you can convince somebody to give you 5 minutes of their time to make something cool that you have control over, I think is what I'm trying to say, is that when you're on a rally, you need to try to be in as much control as possible. Set up stuff, put stuff where you want it, choose your locations if you can, or at least something you can make something out of. Nobody wants to be on a rally for 7 days and just shoot out the side of a van all day. It's just not good for anybody. Like these are the memorable, like I shot tons of rollers on that trip. You didn't pick any of those. So obviously we did something right with this one. Like you have to put yourself out there, convince people that it's worth spending the 5 or 6 minutes with you to knock something out like this. And just know that you're never going to shoot every car that's on there. So it's not worth attempting to, chase everybody down on the highway. Set up the cool stuff, set up the stuff you want to do, or the stuff that's going to make the coolest shots, and go for it.
And I love that that whole, convince them that they're going to be happy with the 5 or 6 minutes they're going to spend with you. And here I'm this guy that it takes like 20 minutes to figure out my composition. And you through experience have learned that you've got to move quick.
Well, that's all that is. I mean, how many years have you been shooting?
With cars, I kind of started to take some car pictures around like 2015. So I've done portraits and weddings and stuff, but yeah, moving into cars only a few years now.
But I'm sure like if I threw you into a wedding tomorrow, you would know where to go and what try to be out in front.
Right.
At least in front of me, who's never done it, you know what I mean? So like that stuff comes like knowing what you want. Like this shot, as we were pushing the car towards the building, I already knew what it would look like. We just had to put the car there. And then the 5 or 6 minutes comes from, we know this was probably the 18th car we've shot that week. So it's just, we know kind of where the lights need to be and just run and just make stuff happen. Actually, we tried to make a video out of it, but it just never came together. The first day, my assistant Eric ran over to the van to get my stuff out of the van while I was setting up a Camaro at the first stop, and he picked up we had left the Profoto trigger in the hot shoe, and he went and accidentally grabbed the camera by the trigger and shattered the foot off of the trigger. So for the first day, we had to figure out. So like literally within the first hour of being there, after a 9-hour drive from New York to the first stop, had to figure out how we were going to trigger the strobe. You don't just walk into CBS and pick up a Profoto wireless trigger.
Right.
So there's footage somewhere of us holding the trigger with one hand, mashing it into the hot shoe to try to make contact with one hand and triggering it with the remote. We did a couple as it got darker, and we were able to leave the shutter open a little bit longer just to give us enough to trigger the camera and then trigger the strobe manually, and it would still capture because the shutter was open. We went to a Home Depot and attempted to reconstruct to glue the foot back. It just never worked. So we went all 7 days with a lot of broken gear.
And you made it work. I mean, that's amazing.
So we had left hand hold the trigger down onto the top of the camera without shaking the camera, and praying that when you fire the camera, it would fire the trigger because we had a lot of misfires because it wasn't making the center pin wasn't making contact. It was a mess.
Oh my gosh.
Which is why we started pushing shoots later into the night where we could light paint.
Yeah, I kind of ran into an experience. Mine wasn't with broken gear, but I've recently switched to, well, it's not recent at this point. I switched to Sony from Canon last year.
Okay.
And I like to shoot as quietly as possible when I'm using my camera. So typically I have silent shutter on. Okay. And I found out that does not trigger the hot shoe. And I found that out in the middle of a shoot because I couldn't figure out why my strobe wasn't going off. And then finally I'm looking on my phone trying to figure this out. Like, why is my strobe not working? Apparently silent shutter mode deactivates the hot shoe on the camera.
I had that. But I had my Sony for like 6 weeks. I figured that out. That was a nightmare.
The things
such a weird thing to shut off too for no reason.
Yeah, and at that point, like I wasn't really shooting enough that the next shoot came around, same thing happened because I didn't remember. Like it had been so long. So, well, so what about as far as just tips in general? I mean, with your experience, you've done a little bit of everything. What kind of tips would you have for green photographers? People that are not necessarily trying to do this for a living, but just trying to up the quality of their work.
You just have to shoot constantly. Like that was the thing. Like when I first started at Rides, like I was just barely able to work there. Like Tony taught me a lot, but it was a lot of on the job, just figuring stuff out, just being thrown into situations that, I guess I could make that work. And then you figure it out, you have to just shoot. And then like you just said with the 5 or 6 minute thing, like it eventually comes, and all that time you put in eventually pays off with knowing what you want before you need it. So I mean, the best advice is just to shoot as much as you can, shoot your own car, shoot anything you can. I see like a lot of people getting hung up on like, well, I don't have Lambos I can shoot. I don't have cool friends with cool cars. Like you have your own car, right? Like you can learn, your 96 Tercel lights the same way as every other car on the earth. Just, figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I've been I think everybody has been right now struggling a little bit with, restrictions and quarantine and all that. And I've seriously been eyeing my daughter's Marshall Paw Patrol fire truck. And I mean, there's nothing to it, but I've been looking at that, and every day a little bit more, I'm thinking that'd be pretty cool. We have a fire station down the road. So if I set it up like those miniature photographers do, like the station in the background and the truck.
I wanted to bring my son's ride-on McLaren for months now, and just haven't gone out to do it.
That's awesome. Well, all right. So let's go ahead and let's bring up your favorite picture, and you can tell us a little bit about that here. So this was what you sent me. This was is your favorite picture of all time of your career? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know this was supposed to be about car stuff, but I promise you, we were there to shoot him with his Aston Martin. Those photos are somewhere else. But this, I think, was just kind of that moment where it all made sense. We were shooting him, and I remember taking this frame and looking at the back of the camera and just be like, this is not really fucking happening. Like, there's no way we're really here with somebody. I mean, I don't know if you could see in the background, but there's like 30 guitars behind me. Like Slash has always been like an absolute hero of mine. And it was just like, it was kind of that first time I had like, is this really happening? And am I actually getting paid for it kind of situation? It was just crazy to be there with, someone that you idolize, and he wanted to be there just as much as you did. Kind of like he was super cool with us. He just wanted to sit and talk cars. Like I thought he was just going to walk in and give us 4 minutes and walk back out the door, but he was awesome. We shot hours over what we were supposed to, and just because nobody wanted to leave, including him. So it was just like that kind of, this was the first time in that whole stint at Rides that was just like, this can't be real life. I think everybody that does this for a living eventually has got that one thing that like kind of solidifies like this is really happening.
Is it that combination of like joy and the fact that it's okay? Like you were saying, like you're being paid to do this and it's so much fun. Like that's where
it's definitely like, somebody trusts you to be here with with a celebrity, and all that goes along with shooting celebrities, and you only get the one chance. It might last 5 minutes, it might last 5 hours. You don't know until the day, like, if they're gonna be cool or not. So somebody trusted me enough and my skills enough that whether it was 5 minutes or 5 hours, we would get what we needed. And that was kind of cool to be trusted with something this big. I mean, since then, this was years ago. I mean, since then I've been trusted with a lot of other stuff, but this was the first one that it was like I definitely guess I've made it at this point if someone trusts me to be here doing this. And is willing to sign a check for it later.
And this is such a cool photo too. I was surprised when you sent this over and it wasn't a car, but it's an incredible picture. So, and I figured if you chose this, there was a story behind it. So it's cool to hear that.
I mean, the cool epiphany moment story is cool, but the better story is how I accidentally cursed Slash out.
You accidentally cursed him out?
Yeah. So this shoot was in I can't tell because I made it all go to black, but there's he's standing in the entryway of there's a Aston dealership in California that delivers your car in a bank vault. So there's like a secret door in the dealership that like a bookcase slides and you come in through this like revolving weird door. So that's the only way in and out of the vault. So I was in there getting stuff set up, and I think it was like maybe 20 minutes till he was supposed to show up. And I've shot celebrities before, and nobody ever shows up on time. So I was like, all right, we got plenty of time. I needed one more light. So our editor in chief at the time, Mike, was running down to the car to grab me an extra strobe, and he took a little long. Like, so now I'm standing there. I need one more strobe, and he hasn't come back yet. I'm sure he got somebody from the dealership cornered him or whatever. So, but in my mind, the next time that door opens, it should be Mike, because there's no way Slash is going to be early. So I have my back to the door. I'm setting up like a softbox or a beauty dish or something with my back to the door. I hear the door open. I was like, it's about fucking time. I spin around. When I didn't hear Mike answer me back, I spun around, and it was, of course, Slash. And when I explained to him what happened, he was really, really cool about it. But we had a laugh about it.
Oh, man.
So he got cursed out for being 20 minutes early. I bet that's the first time that's ever happened.
And that's probably one of the only times he'll have a story of somebody who, at the time, like, who is this guy? Nobody. He talks to him that way.
No, he was super cool all day, just talking Astons and old British cars, and his Aston was ridiculous. I think he had a V12. Was it the Vantage? This is so long ago. I think it was a V12 Vantage or a V10 Vantage, but it was so sick. He had like these plates in the sills, handmade exclusively for Slash.
That's just, and it's, to me, it feels so weird. Like, I mean, I understand car guys are into cars. I just try to envision Slash driving an Aston Martin, and that just seems very odd to me.
I know. He said he actually he demos all his music in the car because he likes the stereo.
Nice.
I think it was banging all of whatever the upgrade Aston one is. He said anything they do in the studio, he puts in the car and takes a drive with.
That's awesome. Well,
and
that's really cool.
With the top hat on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I love that ring light. Is it a ring light or is on the?
That's a gridded. We shot the stuff of him inside the car with a ring light because we were trying to figure out a way to fill the interior of the car with some light. That reflection is a gridded beauty dish that's kind of high up and off to the right.
Okay.
That's why it's a beauty dish, so that's why it's got the hard shadow, but it also has that, it's gridded, so it has that like fall off towards his legs.
Yeah, that explains it. Yeah, and I was curious because it looks like a really fat ring light because of the reflection.
Yeah.
The glasses there. That's cool. It's a great shot. It's amazing light. Well, I think that kind of really wraps everything up for, the show, the questions, everything that I had. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share or?
No, I mean, just people out there to be ready to, if you're going to post stuff, be ready to take the hit. It's going to teach you more to to be told you suck than to be told you're great. Like I still to this day post stuff that people don't like. It's gonna happen. I spent this whole quarantine thing teaching myself videos, and now I'm feeling what it's like to start at the bottom again.
And I feel like I remember a while back you had an image of a Lamborghini, and I think it was like in front of a field of satellite dishes.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember seeing some comments from that from people who were, I don't know, maybe not as impressed with that as some other stuff. Nothing like super, but just to your point of if you're gonna put something out there, I for some reason that picture comes to mind because I remember seeing
that was just because we shot it for the shop I do stuff for, and it was against like a picket fence. Like it just didn't make sense. Like they needed stuff of the car immediately. They didn't care what it looked like, but so I gave them what they wanted with the fence or whatever it was in the background. But then, you shouldn't browse Adobe stock at 4 a.m. on cool satellite dish fields and just run with it. But shit like that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I remember that when I first saw it, I thought it felt very different from your other work, but at the same time, I had forgotten about it.
That was probably the first thing I had attempted to background swap like that, and it was just not the right background for it. Because I have other stuff that's background swap that to this day no one's ever asked about.
Yeah, and I mean, I took your light painting class, class, and for me, there's some stuff in there. I won't say anything about it on here because people should really pay for it. It's a great class, but there's some stuff in there that's just fantastic. Like some advice that you offer in there with like separation of backgrounds and that was just super cool. And that's always kind of stuck with me.
The roles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've seen that actually with you. You've mentioned that in that when you're going through the tutorial, and then I've seen it actually in some of your other photos too. And
that same fence.
Yeah. And I never, ever would have thought about that. And to me, it never stuck out in a way that made me think that's not real. And so like to see you explain it, do it, it's like super easy. And it's like, that's amazing. It's just this amazing little touch.
Yeah. The end of that tutorial just kind of spiraled out of control. Me just giving away stuff. It's not even light painting tricks for other stuff. It wasn't a background swap class, but if you watch that last section of it, you figure it out.
All right. Well, thanks again for agreeing to come on, Andrew. It was really great to get to talk to you and get to know you more, learn more about your story, where you started.
It's great to meet you. I mean, Facebook is Facebook, but this is a lot better.
Yeah, and I'm super nervous now since we are connected on Facebook because, as you've said, people got to be prepared to get torn apart, and so I'm never going to put any more of my photos online. I won't be able to handle your critique.
You gotta read. One of these days, some of us are going to sit down and make a roundtable about these. People don't understand what that. I think that was right before the I guess what they call the trophy generator, where everybody is awesome all the time. Like people got destroyed and people don't understand the extent of how badly people got destroyed on Diesel Station. I got to see if I can find some of the threads and I'll send you links to them because it's brutal shit. Like me and Nate Hassler are good buddies now. We hated each other because I used to post nothing but like the donks I was shooting for rides, and like it became a thing of like, yeah, the photo's cool, but the car sucks. And then he would post. He was working for I think Super Street at the time, so he was posting like 95 Civics, and I'd be like, yeah, the photo's cool, but that got and we just hated each other. We were brutal to each other, but like the photos were good, so we couldn't hate on that. So we would just shit on each other's choice in cars. Like, and then it had to be, just because it's not. And even now, people post stuff, and just because it's a Lambo, they think, the rules of like good car photos don't apply anymore. Just because it's, a Lambo parked in front of Walmart doesn't make it any cooler than anything else parked in that same spot. Like you need to still pay attention to the light, pay attention to the reflections, background, stuff growing onto the car. I think people just get attached to like, just because it's an exotic car, everyone's going to think it's awesome. Like you really should always start with some kind of crappy old car. If you can make that look cool, you can make just about anything look cool. And the lesser brands pay a lot more money than the big brands.
Really?
Oh yeah. You make way more money shooting Kias than you do shooting Paganis.
Is it harder work to make them look at the? No, I'm just kidding. Well, yeah. I mean, thanks again.
Assume that, like, with the exotic cars comes the exotic money, and it's not true.
Sure. Well, all right. So for people,
the grocery getters,
right? So for people who want to see more of your work, your website is andrewlinkphotography.com. Is that right?
The longest URL in the history of the world. Try giving that to someone as an email address.
And so, where do you post to most often with your current stuff? Is it Instagram, Facebook?
I'm usually more active on Instagram than I am on Facebook.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you guys are looking to see more of his work, check him out on Instagram. And is it Andrew Link Photography on there too, or just Andrew Link?
Just Andrew Link.
Okay. All right. And I should know that. I feel terrible for not knowing that. I follow you on there, I promise. So. But yeah, if you guys want to see more of his work, check him out on Instagram. You can also check out his website, like I said before, andrewlinkphotography.com. Thanks again for taking the time, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Have a good time.
And we will hopefully be back here in another week or two with another guest. So thank you all for tuning in tonight, and we will talk to you guys later. Have a great night.